We'll be installing the TapeTech and ASGARD corner finisher maintenance kit. Now this kit number is 501F4A. Again, you can reference on the back. For TapeTech, it's a corner finisher. For ASGARD, it's an angle head. So same type tools. The ASGARD range has a 2.5, 3, 3.5. TapeTech has a 2, 2.5, 3, and 3.5. Let's open this kit up and install it onto the corner finisher. We're going to be installing this one onto a 3-inch corner finisher, an easy roll corner finisher by TapeTech. Again, it's the same as the ASGARD, but slightly different parts. So some of the parts that you'll see in here, we have a couple springs. We have an outer spring and an inner spring. Open this little kit up here. We have some center clips. A lot of people call those the nose, bullet, whatever, but these are called center clips that fit on the front. We have some replacement wheels if you need those, little O-rings for the wheels that are the rollers. We can put those on the side. And then we have some screws, a few fasteners. If you need to set, you have a fastener for the center clip on the bottom, and the top you have a grub screw or a little screw for that. So those are the parts in the kit. Jumping in on the kit itself, the first thing we want to do is remove the springs. Okay, so I'm going to use a regular tip screwdriver, medium tip. And what I do is I kind of flex this because I don't want the springs coming flying out. So you actually have to remove this screw, and you just kind of turn this, kind of hold this down a little bit. There is a spring here as well that holds the locking mechanism on. So you got to kind of compress it and hold it down at the same time, just so stuff doesn't come flying out. You just be careful. If you want to wear safety glasses, recommend it. I wear glasses. This screw is a replacement part if you need a new part. If your screw is, top of it is etched or something, you want to replace it, it does come in the kit. You can just remove this. So now I'm just going to kind of take stuff apart as I put it together. So you have this little top piece, you have the screw. There's a little spring for the locking mechanism. So we'll kind of keep those all together. Again, you have a replacement one here if you want to replace it. And then we have the two springs, the inner and the outer. We'll place those aside. Before I put the springs back in, I want to do a couple other things. I want to remove the center clips. So that's easier to do if this is loose. If you have the springs on, you have to really compress it. It's harder to get to. And I also want to change one of the wheels out just to show you how to get to those. So the first thing we want to do is we have in the TapeTech kit, there's a hex wrench that fits right on here. You can just loosen this up. Actually, I think you need to take these all the way off. Let me just turn this around so I can kind of, not doing left-handed. And again, we'll just set these out. You do have the replacements for these as well if you want to replace them. Twist this out. These T-handled hex wrenches are really, really handy for these repairs. Okay, so if this was tight, if you had the springs in, this wouldn't move. So since this is moving, this piece just slides right out basically at this point. So that plate is removed. The top one usually is a little bit tighter. Sometimes it's actually stuck. You can move it down. You can take a small screwdriver and try to push it out a little bit. I think this one is. See if I can get in with maybe a pick or an awl just to kind of move it down a little bit. And once it moves down, you can have some space to kind of get underneath it and move it down. Again, you got to be careful with these because they do move, but sometimes they've been in there so long, they're tight, and if you need to spray it with oil or something to clean it out just to get it to where it will move down. This one is really tight, so I'm going to try to, I see a little bit of joint compound here, try to get under it and just try to push it down any way I can. So you can see it moved there, and you can just see the material under it. And then that piece comes out. Now you want to get underneath here and clean all this out. Certainly if there's material in here, you need to, that holds everything together as far as your frame, so you have to kind of keep this lined up. You can see this area right here where there's joint compound. but there's a frame here and your blades at the top and certainly at the bottom. It's all held together. The new piece, you can just slide it on there. There's a little track for it. Again, this has all got to be lined up, so everything's got to be, you know, fairly close. If you need to take like a screwdriver or something to kind of on the bottom and just move it up like so, this works pretty good. Usually where you're going to have an issue is this part right here at the top. That's where it needs to line up. So just pull this on all the way up to the top. Now you can see at the top, I've got to kind of compress it. I'm actually going to put the bottom one in just to hold it together. So just slide this in. You can see the little, on the frames, there's a little spot where this can slide in. Again, you got to line everything up so that it'll fit. Okay. Making sure we got the right part here. So be patient with this. This is a kind of a fitting part that you gotta line it all up. Let's see if I can do this upside down maybe. Okay, so the thing about these, you want these parts to be flush. So on the bottom one here, we want this to be flat with that. We don't want this hanging over so it lines up right. This one, again at the top, it's the same thing. You got to get all these parts to kind of line up and where it will kind of snap on. You want this part to be flush as well here, this part right here to be flush. So I need to go in a little bit more. Nice and flush. We're going to put our screws back in just to hold that together. Nice and snug. A little bit of joint compound in there. So those are attached. They're back attached in there. This little part here was it's a safety. Basically, it's a clip that holds our tools on. So it's a locking mechanism, and it just fits right in here like so. I got it backwards. There we go, like that. So this piece here, if it comes out, you can just pop that out. We'll put that together when we're done. As far as the wheel replacement, the O-ring, basically, you want to use a T grip, basically hex wrench, and to get into here. And when the springs are off, it's not too bad to get in there. You can just turn this and release, turn it until the screw comes off, and there should be a little washer right there. There's one more washer. So, like I always do, I always take things apart. How I put them, lay them out as I take them apart. So there's a washer here. Then you have the axle. There's an eye liner, or there's actually a liner inside there, a little bushing that sits on the screw. And then you have the washer and the screw itself. Now, the only thing that we're going to do here is replace the wheel. And to get these rubber O-rings off, it can be a little tricky, but I use this little pointed tool, something that you can get underneath. And basically, you're just going to pull off the old O-ring and clean out the area where it was, make sure there's no joint compound in there. And then just, again, get under it best you can. And these usually get worn out or flat spotted, or they've been worn out. You can replace the wheels pretty easily, the O-ring. But you do have to take them off. I think it's easier to take them off than try to do it with the tool, with the wheel, with the axle on there. So So this one has some dry joint compound. All you're trying to do is just roll it off. Now to put the new one on, you can just kind of place it at one end and roll it over top. Hands are oily, it's a little tricky. Sometimes you got to reset and clean your hands. So these are pretty tight. So you just kind of, as best you can, just slide them over top like so. Put another new one on here. That's how you put it on. Okay, so to reinstall the wheel, the washer, a little bushing over top of the screw, put it through the axle, one more washer, and then you can screw it back onto the casting itself. Once you get it lined up, just kind of turn it until it's tight. Make sure it's snug. Make sure the wheels are going well. And to repeat on the other side. This side as well as to replace that part. Now to go back and put your springs on, we have to kind of do this in order. So we're going to put this little locking mechanism back in, like so. The two springs, so you have an inner and outer. The outer one is bigger than the inner one, so the inner one has to go first. And what we're going to do with those, before we put those in, I'm going to line up these screws. So we have an extra screw here. So when you use the new screw, and you want to set that into this little plate that holds it down. Now, on top of this little locking clip, this patented locking clip that TapeTech and ASGARD have, you want to put this little spring on top of there. So there's a little post right there. You can just kind of place it right on top of there. Now on this part here, the thread will go in here, and then there's a little ledge or an edge right there. That'll push down on this spring. So, but we got to kind of do this at the same time. So put the springs in first. Kind of wedge them in there the best you can. You're going to have to push in on these. So put the first one in. Make sure the arms are down. Little spring on there. Now this is the part where you're going to have to kind of push in on the spring and install the threaded piece. So you can kind of do this if you can see. Start your thread here. And the trick is to get this spring underneath that, and that's the hard part. And as you tighten this spring will tighten down. You can, once you get it started, you can release it, but you have to tighten this down to where, make sure everything's kind of lined up. Now, on the back here, you have these little arms. So on this side, this arm is good. This arm, you can see I don't have it in place. You can just snap it over and down, and then you can have it so it'll engage on the frame. So you want to make sure the locking clip's working. These are working. The springs are compressing. The center clips are attached, and the new wheels are attached from this kit.